I'm up here making sure I have everything correct, okay? Everything out that I need. Doing the tamales, okay? Putting those together today. Oh, and by the way, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me on this, which is my holiday special. This is a series that I'm doing for the Christmas holiday. And so it's Holiday with Me for Christmas holiday. And thank you for joining me in the kitchen. I do appreciate that. And that's what this is about. It's just to come into my kitchen and join me while I'm preparing the stuff I'm doing this year for myself, as an addition to some other meals that I'm doing later on. So I'm preparing tamales that'll be used for Christmas, and that's what all of this is about. So I've got some stuff here that I've already made, and if you haven't seen the first episodes in this short series I'm doing for the holiday season, then go ahead and take a look at that. You'll see how I got this started. But I got some shredded pork down here, and I've got a bunch of gelatin here from that pork, and I've got some lard up in this top thing that's from that same pork, and then right here I've got a chili paste, stuff I've already made for this. The gelatin I think is still pretty, yeah, it's still very gelatinous, so I'm going to need to warm it just a little bit to get it kind of liquidy, and then as soon as it is, I can use this down in this. So what do you do to take a big bowl of gelatinous liquid and turn it liquid again? I don't know what you do, but I'm just going to put some hot water in this, put that over it, and wait for it to bring it up in temperature a little. Kind of like a double boiler, huh? So what I've got to do here, let me kind of line this out for you what I'm doing. First I have to make a sauce from this chili paste that I made. All right, I did that the other day. And then when I make that sauce, I will make the dough for my tamales. And so the dough is going to be made with my mixer here. I'll then be lining out my corn husks with that dough. And then I'll take the meat that I have. It'll also be flavored with the chili sauce. And once it's flavored with chili sauce, we're up and running. So all things kind of basic on this. Put a flame under that. I'll let it just sit there and bring this up in temperature. There we go. That's all that takes. This right here, this is that chili paste. This is a real super high grade chili paste product that we made right here in this kitchen. The aroma is just superb on this. The quality is fantastic. You're not going to get a better quality product than the way I made this. And it ends up making a sauce that flavors the meat and the masa harina so very well. So, you know, other things that I've got here, I've got some cumin, baking powder, salt, black pepper, lime juice. These are my corn husks. I've got some lard here, so I've got extra lard in the event that this isn't enough, and it likely isn't. And then I have here what's called masa harina. And this is a product that's actually made from let's see, hominy. If you were to take corn and to pickle it and then dry it and grind it into a flour, that's what this is. All right, so you take basically hominy and grind that down. You get a beautiful flour. We call it masa harina. Actually, it's Hispanics call it masa harina. So I need 6 cups of this. If you ever go out to purchase this stuff, you'll see different brands of it. Some of it's instant, some is not. The instant just has baking powder already put in it. If you want to use that, you can. It works just the same. And it'll usually mention that it is for tamales and tortillas. So great for making corn tortillas. And I like to use this brand because, as you see, it's not a real bright white color. They don't over process it. It's very natural. I like to put it in a Ziploc bag because it's easier to measure out of, plain and simple. This chili paste right here, I'll go ahead and put it right down in here. There's a little liquid that's separated from it, and that's not an issue at all. It doesn't have anything to do with anything. So what this is just dehydrated chilies, or excuse me, dried chilies that I reconstituted and then milled into this beautiful paste. The gelatin didn't take but just a few minutes to get it to where it was agreeable. It's still a little bit what looks like lumpy, but it'll certainly work for what I'm doing right here. Now I'll say this, that just as with tomato paste, you put a little liquid in it and then you stir it and suddenly you've still just got paste. Chili paste is kind of that same way, so it's going to take a little bit of liquid to get it to rehydrate. And what you're looking for is a consistency at about that of spaghetti sauce. Okay. So I'm going to get this right here out of my way because I just don't need it. Use a whisk. Almost there. And if you notice, I don't use measurements on that. I just put in enough liquid until I get the right consistency. This is essentially one of the primary flavors for the tamales themselves. And just a little more to cook out. All right. And I use this gelatin also when I'm hydrating out my dough. And the dough is really made more like a batter when we produce that. All right, so I'll just bring this up in temperature. There we go. Give that time. As it starts to simmer, I'll cover it and then we'll let it cook there for just a few minutes. Now I need to put some flavoring in this that I haven't done already. So one of the things that the sauce requires is some cumin. Okay, there we go. Comino. If there's any lumps in it, I'll just go ahead and knock them out. Work that in. I'm going to put a little bit of salt in this. Doesn't require just a whole lot. This recipe calls for about a quarter of a cup of lime juice to be added to this. And what this does, this actually bumps up the flavor of this. You don't really taste the lime juice so much as you just taste a better chili flavor. Okay, my sauce here has been simmering for about 30 minutes, and frankly that's about all it needs. So I'm just going to turn off the heat. And I'm going to let this sit open because I want it to cool as quickly as I can get it to cool. See, I'm going to be using this, a part of it, in the masa harina. And when I'm doing that, I don't want the heat of this to melt my lard. And we'll get into that in a minute, okay? For the dough, we have that masa harina, as I mentioned before. And I have here lard. Now, I've got two kinds of lard. There was the lard I harvested from my roast and a little extra that I put in this. You need a total of about 1.5 cups. I've got 6 cups of the masa harina and a tablespoon each salt, baking powder, ground cumin, and 2 tablespoons of black pepper. And so you'll know. These items right here, I go ahead and mix into this. This needs to be creamed, all right? So there's a lot of different ways of making tamales. Some folks will not use lard at all. Some people like to use shortening instead of lard. Some folks say you don't have to use either, just use plain oil. That will work also. The point is we use a fat of some kind in the tamale masa. or in the tamale dough, let's call it that. And we do that to keep it moist. These things are steamed when they're cooked, okay? And we don't want them coming out kind of a dry texture. So with that fat in there, we don't have to worry about that happening. All right? So I just like to get those dry items mixed into that. And I use a little measuring cup as a scoop. This portion of it, what I'm doing here, let's see, I've got a little bit of liquid right down in here, and that's just the gelatin that was off of the roast. I'll pour that off. It will not hurt to get that gelatin down in this right now. It doesn't hurt a thing. But I don't want that much excess. I just don't need it in there. All right. Lard is just wonderful, and you treat it the exact same way you would any other fat when you're baking. Okay, when it comes to working the fats in baking, best practices say go ahead and fluff it every single time. Okay, so that's what I do. When this is light, white, creamy, smooth, and anywhere from doubled to tripled in bulk, then it is ready. Now, for the sauce that I use in this, in my dough, anywhere from a cup to a cup and a half, just depending on, well, I guess, how strong you want to make it that time, okay? This is what I will use to hydrate my dough. So I have all of that flavor that's involved. Flavor here, flavor here. This has its flavor, and it makes for a great dough. Look at the difference that we see in that. It's just so cool. It doesn't hurt it at all. Just keep on working it, and it just improves the way that the fat disperses through the dough, and it makes the dough a little lighter, a little fluffier. Anything that works air into the dough or adds carbon dioxide, like our baking powder, is a good thing. As it's being steamed, we want it to puff lightly and to swell just a little bit, which is part of the process. Our meat needs to be seasoned. So, boy, I tell you, that looks a whole lot different than when it first started, doesn't it? Look at that. It's almost doubled in bulk. Like I said, we're looking for smooth and creamy quality. Look at that. That, you know, that almost looks like marshmallow cream. I still got a little of that chili paste on my on this, my spatula. So it's going to get some in that beautiful white lard. It's not going to hurt it because we're about to put a whole bunch of that chili paste in there. Okay. I'm going to let this run a little bit more. We're going to fluff it just a little more. And like I said, this is just in good baking practices right here. This is not something that you would normally see. Most people who've been making tamales all their life, they don't normally go to this extent. Some do, but not all. I think it just has to do with a better quality texture when it comes to that dough that's around that beautiful meat on your tamale. That has taken a serious turn. Now look at that. How much more has caught on the beater. There's even more in the bowl. So I've got a lot more volume there. It's gotten very light, fluffy. It's good quality. That's what we look for when we're looking for good quality and baked goods. Now, as with any dough recipe, or in this case it's more like a batter, I want to slowly work in my ingredients. So I'm going to alternate back and forth between liquid and dry ingredients, just working them both in. I do that at slow speed. Don't try doing this at high speed or it'll just throw it out at you if you've never done it before. And of course, if you've used a mixer, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now I'm going to probably make too much of a mess, so I think I'm going to transfer this to something I can pour out of. And one of the last things I'll put in will be my my chili sauce. And I'll get that in before I finish up because I want to make sure I get the consistency right. And that will depend on how much of the liquid off of the broth that I'm using here. All right, I have all of the ingredients in there. So now I'm just trying to get it to combine. And again, I don't rush this. You notice I have it at low speed. I'm going to speed it up just a little. And that kind of a jiggling condition, very normal for this, okay? I want to check this. I want to check its consistency. And the best way I found of doing that is just reach in and get a little. All right, and if I get this and it's got a real thick, a doughy consistency to it, like it'll ball up, then it's just way too dry. Okay, and if it is soupy and it's falling off my finger and it won't hold a peak like that right there, then it's way too wet. So I'm looking for that condition in between. It's like a real soft peanut butter, and that way it'll spread real smooth and easy across the corn husk and make a nice thin layer. It'll be beautiful. That's what I'm looking for right there. I'll give that a moment more to mix. So here's our dough. Beautiful. I've got the meat here. I was going to take this meat and just add a little bit of this. Now I'm doing that to make this meat just a little juicier. It's already got a lot of moisture in it from that sauce, but I want it to be real good and moist, all right? And now it looks like it is. And this is something you should want. And that way, when you bite into your tamale, you get a nice moist interior with a dough that has kept its moisture as well. And the whole thing just really produces a much better quality tamale. All right, so meat is right where it needs to be. The dough's where it needs to be. I hang on to a little of this in case the dough starts thickening too much. I can go ahead and add a little extra liquid to it to thin it. So what I need is just something to put here to make my tamales. Now what I'll do, when I'm finished making my tamale here, I'll just stack them up here. And when I get a nice batch of them put together, then I'll put them in my steamer. Now before I get started on this, let me show you real quick how to set up your steamer if you've never done tamales. Hey, this is fun, isn't it? This is my Christmas tamales. Boy, I am looking forward to these. I really love tamales. They're so good tasting. Now this is actually one of those big fryers, like a turkey fryer. But you can use big pots like this that are fryers for making tamales. A tamale pot is pretty much the same thing as this, except it has a raised floor that's perforated that allows steam to come up through. The tamales sit on top of that perforated floor with the boiling water underneath it. Well, I've got something that'll work here. You see, I've got these pan racks, and inside of this is actually this, which is designed for doing the frying, but it steams great too. So what I do, since the dimples on the bottom of this aren't very tall, I put 2 of these in the bottom. And it effectively raises this guy up about 1.5 inches. So I got a good space underneath there now for boiling water, and it works out great. So boom, I have my makeshift tamale steamer. Now you can use a big pot with a steaming basket, a steamer basket inside. That works. Just, hey, sometimes you gotta work with what you got, right? Okay, now it's time to make a tamale. Okay, so here it is, folks. This is how the tamales get made. Let me get some of my corn husk out here. Now what I've done is I put these down in water to soak. Sometimes your corn husks can be a little bit dry, and so I like to soak them, and also it gives them a good wash in case there's any of the old silk left on them. Now corn husks, my friends have always told me, make sure you tell your viewers this, to get the smooth side of the corn husk. Okay, well folks, there is, if you feel the corn husk, it feels rough on both sides, but one side has little ribs sticking out on it a little bit more than the other side. Sometimes it's hard to tell which side that is. If it's hard to tell, don't sweat it. But if you can feel it and it's distinct, go ahead and put that smooth side face up so that when you put your dough on there like this, that it will spread smooth, even, easy, and you won't have any problems with it tearing. Okay? Now here's the thing. Notice how I have this. Narrow end over here, wide end here, and I put a little bit of the dough right here on one corner. I'm going to take some meat. Now here's the real trick. You'll say people that get really irritated because they get a tamale that's all dough. They say, man, I hate tamales that are just all dough. And I'm one of those people. I really hate that. I want a good meaty tamale. Now, whether it's beef or pork or chicken, make your tamale meaty, okay? Make it something that's worth biting into, that people are really gonna be thankful for when they bite into. And that way you have diners that are very happy with your work. So what I've tried to do is get about a 1/8 inch thick layer of the masa harina dough, a nice little layer of the meat, about the size of a sausage or a hot dog, and then I'm going to roll this. Now the important part is that the masa right here touch the masa right here so that it seals, and it will make an enclosure that will hold, you see right there, that will hold all the meat in. So what I do is I'll roll this up now. Now here's the next thing. When it comes to folding, here's the end of the corn husk. When you fold this, you can fold it toward, but a good Hispanic friend of mine taught me, fold it away. It actually, even though that looks loose, it keeps it from unwinding because it pulls it tight. All right? I push the meat in just a little bit. I'll give it a little pinch on the top, and what that does is it just kind of closes it over, so it's closed on both ends. You can leave it open with the meat exposed. Both ways are fine. Now when you steam it, we steam it sitting on end, just like this, vertical, not laying sideways. If it lays sideways, it can kind of weep out the end and they come out a little bit flat and they're not as pretty. Stand them on end, just like this on the folded end, and that way when they're steaming, they will take on a beautiful shape. It also gives some space for this husk to push outward as the baking powder produces gases that will expand and do that for you, okay? So that's how all that works. Have fun doing that. Have fun making these things, because ladies and gentlemen, they're not that hard to make. And I have watched people that are experienced at this, and they put me to shame. All right? Because they will hold it in one hand, and with one quick swipe of a big spoon, they will have a perfect layer of that dough on there. And here I am, I have to kind of struggle with it almost every time. And I've been making them a long time, okay? So if you have a little bit of trouble, it's normal. My tamale recipe is on my website, and also there is a tutorial video, several of them that I've done actually, on tamales on my channel. So please avail yourself to that. You can, I've got videos on pork tamales, beef tamales, and one that's a cheese and chili tamale. So basically a chili con queso tamale. Yeah. Oh, yummy. Now the other thing is, if you'll notice, I don't put the dough all the way up to the end. I leave a little space because it is going to expand outward, okay? So I've made my tamales. Now, Normally when I do a batch of tamales, I'll get about 45, sometimes 50. This time I've got 34. I didn't change the batch. I just made them a lot meatier and bigger. These are holiday tamales. They're special. Held about 3 quarts. Now I want to take these and I'm just going to go inside of it, standing them on end. Sometimes they'll fall over occasionally and fight you a little bit. You just kind of keep working with it, okay? So even though there were fewer, if you'll notice, they take up pretty much the same amount of space in a tamale pot. So what I'm trying to do now is get everything vertical and just kind of lined out so they're good and straight up and down. Okay, we got water in there. We just got to bring it up to a boil. And as soon as I get steam coming off of this lid, I'm going to set my timer and steam these for 1 hour. Got my timer set. Got 1 hour going on, producing steam. At the end of 1 hour, we'll turn off that. I'm going to take the tamales out and I'm going to put them on top of some pan racks, these guys, on top of a baking pan. So that's simple. There we are. At this point, it's just a matter of let them steam. After they steam, they need to cool and firm up. They'll set up. Don't try to eat them immediately or unroll them immediately after they've steamed. They like I said, that dough will still be too soft and it needs to get firm. When you reach the end of 1 hour of steaming, pull one of them out. Set him aside. Let him just sit there for a few minutes, okay? You want it to give it some time to firm up. What we're doing here is we're using one to test, okay? And if after about a 10-minute cool, when this is unrolled, if it releases from the corn husk, it's finished cooking. Otherwise, it needs to go back in and the rest of them will be finished cooking. Give them another, 15 to 30 minutes of cooking time, and they'll be fine after that. But this is just the earliest you're going to get them done is about 1 hour, and usually sometimes it'll go up to an hour and 15 or 20 minutes or more. Okay, there we have it. I'll give it some time. When it cools, we'll open it and see what it looks like. All right, it has been 8 minutes now, so let's take a look. Let's see if it'll release. It's feeling cool to the touch. Now see there? See how that's coming free? It's still just a little bit soft, so the ones I left in there to cook just a little longer are going to benefit. But look at that, folks. That's exactly the way a tamale is supposed to look. That's absolutely perfect. Okay. So, all I have to do is take the rest of them out, set them out to cool, and give them some time. And in about 15 minutes, they'll be ready to enjoy. All right. Love tamales. Oh, and that's exactly what it should be. Folks, this was fun. Thank you for sharing the holiday with me. We got more of these videos coming. I've got more to cook. Thank you for watching. If you want this recipe, it's at my website, S.A.Trotter.com. Please check it out. My recipes are really good quality. You'll love the way they're written. Also, the tutorial on how to make this, it's also on Texas Cooking Today. So check that out. A lot of information there. These are great. Merry Christmas too.